Hey guys, welcome to another build video. Today we are going to be building the Hasegawa Mitsubishi Lancer GSR Evolution 3. This was a lovely build and I set myself a challenge to see if I could build it in a short time frame. And my main goal with this build was to refine my glossy finish in order for it to shine and reflect like a mirror. Stick around till the end to see if I was able to achieve that. This kit overall was very nice with good fit in most places, but I will say a Tamiya car kit is still miles ahead. In the end it came out to a nice little model to display and I am quite happy with the result. This Evo is the third iteration of the Lancer Evo line. This specific model depicts the premium GSR spec, which came with Recaro bucket style seats, OZ 5-spoke rims, and better performance compared to the standard models. As you can see, I am currently marking where there would be mold lines. This is part of the body prep process and it's the thing I like to do first, just so that I know exactly where they are and it will become very easy to sand them out as I'm doing here. After this, the process would be to sand down the whole car. I'm using 800 grit sandpaper. If the mold lines are quite pronounced, I might use 600 just to get through them a bit quicker. Once all of your mold lines are sanded down, you can go ahead and sand the rest of the body. Again, I'm using 800 grit sandpaper. This is so that the primer can adhere really well to the surface. Here I'm pulling out the Tamiya scriber. This is to scribe the lines. Be very careful when using this, very light-handed. Even though I was being careful and I was being light-handed, I did make a couple scuffs and went outside of panel lines and it scuffed up the surfaces around and it wasn't great. I needed to fill. Yeah, so as you can see, I had some issues here about where I'm pointing. I used some of Mr. White Putty, and with the white putty I was able to fill in those holes. It didn't come out perfect. I could have done a slightly better job, but in the end, with the final result, it was alright. Here I'm using Kaleido Colorworks primer, the white one. This is an incredibly good acrylic primer, and I'd like to say thank you to Gaahleri for sending it out for me to try. I'm using a white primer because I'm going to be spraying yellow over it, and yellow is one of those colors that when you're brushing, you're airbrushing, whatever you're doing with yellow, it's going to be very hard to get the opacity to come through. It's one of those colors that will benefit heavily from a white primer or a white base coat. If I tried to do this with a grey or a black primer, it would have been much harder, many more coats needed. A quick note about this primer, I will say it's absolutely incredible. It's water based, but it really acts almost like a lacquer primer. It sands down very nicely and I really don't have anything to complain about. Do check out in the description the Kaleido Colorworks website if you'd be interested in getting some for yourself. Here I'm going to be wet sanding with a 3000 grit sanding sponge by Tamiya. This is just to unify the surface, make everything nice and smooth for when I go and apply the yellow paint. You don't have to be super thorough, but you know, just make sure there's no rough spots because those will come through. And here it is, much more smooth. And here is the 24 auto colors that I was sent by Gaahleri. This is a beautiful selection of colors, and today we're going to be going with Modena Yellow. As I said, if you are interested in any of these products by Gaahleri, do check the description and you can also get yourself a 10% discount store-wide. To spray, I've been using the GHAD with a 0.5 needle for larger surfaces and the Mobius 0.2, and they are excellent airbrushes. I use them for all of my work and I genuinely have no complaints about them. If you're interested in them, do check the description. This yellow paint is applying very nicely to the surface. I'm going to be starting off with a few like light coats, almost misting it on, and then slowly we're gonna be building up that color. So as you can see here, it's very light, some of the white is still coming through, but after a while the opacity builds up very nicely. Just as you can see here, the yellow is really starting to pop. It looks absolutely incredible. This is a lovely paint to use, and I am very happy with it. I have absolutely no complaints. They do claim that these apply like lacquers, and I can definitely agree with that. These are very close to the lacquers that I use. Here I'm going to be spraying some of the other elements such as the spoiler, wing mirrors, and the underside. I want to take a moment to say, if you guys are enjoying the video, please do consider subscribing and dropping a like on the video. It really helps out to get the channel to reach more people, and it also helps me out. It makes me want to make more videos, so I would really appreciate it. This is the absolutely iconic spoiler that these Evos have, and it just looks absolutely amazing on the final model. I'm really excited to show you guys. Here the wing mirrors, I did sand slightly too far in. Here you can see the paint, a bit of orange peel, but you know, that's nothing to worry about. We'll get that sorted with a quick 3000 grit wet sand, and it will be all good. Here we have the exhaust. As you can see, it's alright, nothing like too majorly detailed. It did have some flash and some extra stuff on it, but I'm going to be improving it by removing all of those mold lines and deepening the exhaust holes, and that looks 100 times better. For the inside, we have the dash here. We're installing the handbrake, and later I also installed the gear stick. Here we're installing the center console, although I guess it's not really a center console, but the centerpiece of the dash. Installing, fit was alright. Fit wasn't too positive, but it was okay. The seats instead were much better, they fit right in. The dashboard as well, I have no complaints, that just slotted in perfectly. I'm going to be using Tamiya X18 semi-gloss black for all of the interior surfaces, because it just gives the right look, in my opinion. It's that leathery, kind of like the fake leather plastics that you would have had in these 90s cars, and I just think it looks spot on. On other elements, I'll be spraying some Tamiya Chrome Silver. This is for all of the aluminum and silver parts, mostly for the underside. I didn't actually have an aluminum paint, so I just ended up using Chrome Silver, and I think it looks good enough. The brakes as well would be applied with Chrome Silver, and in the end it looks quite good. Here the seats, unfortunately they had these massive ejector pin marks, but I removed them, and then I sprayed some XF69 NATO black from a distance to give them a textured appearance. I'm going to be using the same technique here with the wheelbase, wheel arches. I just think it looks the right color rather than a gloss black. Removing the masking is always a very satisfying process. You can see everything came out quite cleanly, except for one little spot on the other side, but it's alright. Here are the seats. They came out really nice with that textured look, and they'll be getting a bit of a treatment later on. Here I'm painting some Revell Aqua Silver. This is going to be for other elements that needed to be this silver color, and it applies really nicely. I really enjoy using Revell Aqua for brush painting. Here I'm using their red for the brake calipers. They're very forgiving paints. And here we got the brakes looking very nice. I'm going to be applying the same red here to the suspension and shock absorbers on the springs, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. Here we have a tiny bit of detail painting on the inside. This takes a lot of steady hands just to make sure you don't get the paint where it's not supposed to go, but you know, after a while you get there. Here we have this beautiful Momo steering wheel. I'm going to be adding a bit of silver just to make it more interesting. Applying this decal was painful. As you can see, it took me quite a while to actually get into position, but eventually we got there. But yeah, these always get me in car builds because they're quite hard to get right into the right place, but you know, you get there in the end. And also you can see I did just a bit more detail painting up on the dash. Here is the Momo steering wheel going in. Everything's nice. The fit is very good with all of these interior pieces, I must say. And here was the spicing up of the seats. I'm going to be getting this interior section of it in red, and technically the seats wouldn't have come like this from the factory. I think they look great though, with the red and the black. You'll see in just a second when I do some more demasking, which is probably like my favorite process. It's very nerve-wracking because if paint peels or stuff just goes wrong, but it is definitely my favorite. And there you go, the seats, absolutely lovely. Here, after the gloss was applied, you can see that the surface, it was alright. There is some slight orange peel, but this is how we get through that. First of all, I go with 4000 grit sanding sponge. I'm going to be doing this whole process with 4000, 6000, 8000 and 10,000, and this is just to really smooth out the surface. And after the 10,000 you can see it's like this. It's almost going to shine back, but the real shine comes when you apply compound polish and wax. So here I'm applying the compound with a rotary tool, and I'm going to be doing the same with the polish, and I'll also be using wax, which I apply with a microfiber cloth. And look at that, absolutely beautiful. You can see the difference between the top being polished and the other sides aren't. It looks amazing, and here is everything now polished. I'm extremely happy. This is the best finish I've had on a car, and I'm gonna be doing this process many more times. Moving on to the glass, the clear part is alright. There's a slight amount of warping, but not too bad. You get pre-cut masks, which is very good. I then masked off all of the trim pieces, and it was time to start painting. Again, this is another one of those processes that's quite nerve-wracking because you really don't want any paint bleed or anything to go wrong here, just because all the time you spent on the body itself and then you've got to mask it all up, and yeah, it can be annoying when you get a paint bleed. And to spoil things for you, yeah, there were some paint bleeds which I had to sort out. Some of them much easier to sort out than others. Some I just had to leave ever so slightly because I would just ruin the finish. Here we have the interior trim now to get painted around the edges. Again, these are pre-cut masks that come in the kit, are absolutely amazing. They apply easily and they do their job very well. This is much easier than what I had to do with the R33 build, where I had to make my own, and yeah, I don't want to think about that. It took me so long to do all of that. Some more peeling. And there it is, very nice finish. And now we have some more unmasking on the main body. Here you see there's that tiny speck, so that's one part where it bled, and also on one of the arches on the front windscreen, I believe on the right side, but you know, it is what it is. Stuff happens. Overall, everything else was right. This was kind of like the one major setback that I had during this build. And yeah, you can see it just there in the corner. Also, for whatever reason, the Tamiya tape left an ever so slight residue. I tried to clean it up and it really wasn't coming off, which is weird because I did let the clear coat dry for 4 days before polishing it, so I'm not sure what happened there. Here we have the center wheel hubs going on. Now I'm going to be spraying white on mostly a white wheel, which seems very useless, but you know, the center caps, they were grey, and you know, just the painted finish is so much better than the plastic. So I had to do it. I couldn't leave it as just plastic. Here we have the branding for the OZ wheels. These decals, very nice to apply. Overall, the decals, to be honest, they were actually quite nice. None of them ripped. Then not cartograph, I think. Yeah, no, they're not cartograph decals, but they are good decals. Here I was trying to record, that was just kind of went bad. Here we are painting the insides of the headlights. So this section here needed to be silver, like the whole headlight had to be silver, but the specific area I'm painting, then as you can see here, it gets covered in clear orange. This would be for the turn indicator. Here I'm doing some black marker on the edges. This adds the kind of like the rubber lining that these components would have on the rail car, and with a pen is the easiest way to apply those. I'm going to be using some Amomig Ultra Glue, which is a strong PVA glue or white glue, and yeah, it does its job very well. I really enjoy using it for all clear parts and photo etch whenever I use that. As you can see, those went in quite nicely. Here we're doing the rear, the tail lights. These as well, fit was actually quite good with these. Everything went in nicely and stuck together strong. Here we're applying a couple more decals. Now, thinking about it, I should have done this before applying the clear coat. Luckily though, these decals are in an area where you actually don't really notice them too much. And you definitely don't notice the raised edges around them, so I was very lucky. But what I would have done usually is apply these before the clear coat, then clear coat over them, just so that it eliminates the raised edges. Here I'm going to be applying some titanium like heat staining on the exhaust. This is the stock exhaust, probably not made out of titanium, but let's just say that the person upgraded slightly, and I really like doing this effect on my car builds, and one day I will try and do a proper custom exhaust. This is a very simple process, and I use the Tamiya palette to do this. You just apply first the rust color and then this burnt blue color, and yeah, the effect it gives is lovely, and it's a very simple thing to do. This whole process took me about 1.5 minutes, and this is the result I achieved. Let me know what you think. Here we have all of the parts laid out, ready for assembly finally. We're going to be starting off the assembly with the underside. I believe that might be an oil pan. I'm actually not too sure because there's also one at the back. I'm not 100% on what those are. Here we have the front brakes. You gotta put in the poly cap, and this allows the wheels to turn, and look at that, you have some nice turning motion. Here we have one of those reinforcing arms. Here we have the drive shaft. This I had a bit of issues getting in, mostly because I needed to apply super glue from the other side just so they would actually sit in. I tried with cement and it just wasn't working for whatever reason. Here we have the rear suspension going in with the brakes. Again, fit is actually very good with these parts, nothing that I can complain about. Here we have the exhaust. Again, this one also fit very nicely. It was just the drive shaft that I was having issues with. And there is the undercarriage all sorted out. It's looking very nice. And there is that exhaust. Here are the Recaro seats finished with their decal applied, and I think they look absolutely awesome. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And yeah, let me know what color you would have gone for. Here is the dash all put together, looking very nice, and as I said before, the fit was incredible, everything just went nicely together. So here I'm going to be creating a wash. I'm going to be using Winsor & Newton colors. I'm using ivory black and one of the whites. I don't think it's just pure white, but I think it's the mixing white that they have. Just a tiny dot of each to create a slight grayish, dark grey wash. And I'm going to be applying this to both the body itself and also the radiator in just a moment. This really just helps to bring out the different fins, because usually when you see radiators in real life, they do get dirty. Even if they're relatively new, after just a few uses, they get dirty. Here we're now putting the tub into the locating pins for it. The wheels, very nice. As you'll see in a minute, I had a bit of an issue with the wheels making the brakes separate. I think this is probably just an issue because I didn't scrape the paint off before applying the cement, so the bond just wasn't that strong. And yeah, you'll see it with this wheel right here. That as I'm applying it, it just pops off. And that was very annoying to deal with, but I got that all sorted out. All the other wheels were nice and I didn't have issues until at the end, and you'll see that as well. Right, and so that is the interior and chassis complete. As you can see, it rolls very nicely. This part here, I'll just say it, at the end, I'm not very happy with how it turned out. I'm not sure how I was going to paint it properly, but it just came out rough and I didn't enjoy it. I'm probably going to try some of Tamiya's clear paints because these were AK ones, and I don't know, just something about the consistency is very slimy and it just doesn't seem to work. Here we have the interior glass all put in and everything's looking very nice. We even had the mirror, and here the very iconic spoiler can now go on. I had a bit of trouble finding the pin, but I got there in the end, and just taking a look at it for the first time with the spoiler on, and yeah, it just looked so good and I couldn't wait to get this all assembled. We have the wipers, these went on quite nice. The locating pins were pretty good for them. And this rear windshield wiper, there is a slight circle to guide you, but it's not indented at all, so you kind of just have to eyeball it. And yeah, I end up cleaning the excess glue. And now for the most nerve-wracking part of the build for me, installing the two parts together. I find this horrible because I just have to apply so much force and I feel like I'm gonna break everything. As you saw there, I actually made the chassis go too far down, and here while I'm trying to adjust it, the wheel pops off for the same reason that the other one popped off, and the spoiler also had to come off at this point, but it's fine, everything could be put back on, and eventually I got it seated in the correct position. Here I'm going to be applying the same wash that I made for the radiator before along all the panel lines. I'm doing this because the color is quite bright on the yellow, and adding this just adds that natural shadow that you would have on a real car, and yeah, I think that it helps with the realism of the model. You can then go ahead and once it's dry, wipe it off with a clean Q-tip, and it just comes right off. Then we have these, I believe these are intakes, or maybe they're just vents to cool the engine because it would get quite warm. Again, applying the wash there since that's how it would look realistic. And the final process was installing the mirrors. These were incredibly painful to install, as per usual with all car builds. And there we go, the model is finished. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it, and please let me know what you think about the video and the model in the comment section. And I'm gonna leave you with a couple pictures of the model. Thank you, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, and if you're kind enough to subscribe, I would really appreciate that. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.